Welcome to this explainer. Look, if you're tuning in, chances are you are one of the hard-working heroes right there on the front lines of customer experience. And let's be real, working as a business process outsourcing professional, it is no easy task. It takes serious resilience, lightning-fast thinking, and a truly specialized set of abilities. So today we're focusing on the single most critical element of your success, and that is your interpersonal skills. We're not just talking about being polite here. This is about building rock-solid customer relationships through highly effective communication. It's about empowering you to take total control of every single interaction you have.
We all know the fast-paced, high-stakes reality of BPO work. You're operating in an environment that is totally driven by performance, right? Improve customer satisfaction, increase FCR, which, as we know, is first contact resolution, and meet those SLAs, or service level agreements. These are our ultimate targets. These are the metrics that define success on the operations floor, they dictate your quality assurance scores, and they literally drive the entire business forward. But as we all know, knowing the targets is definitely not the same as actually hitting them.
Okay, let's dive into this. How do we achieve these metrics consistently? How do you take a completely frustrated caller, turn their entire day around, solve some crazy complex technical issue, and somehow do it all within a strict time limit? Well, spoiler alert, the secret doesn't lie in memorizing more technical manuals. The answer is your interpersonal skills. This right here is your ultimate toolkit to answer this exact question, to control the narrative of the interaction, and to drastically reduce those stressful escalations to your supervisors.
So, to get us there, here is our roadmap for today. First up, the Interpersonal Skills Toolkit. Second, listening and empathy. Third, problem solving and conflict. Fourth, teamwork and adaptability. And finally, best practices for success. Let's get right to connecting those soft communication skills directly to those hard business metrics.
Section 1, the Interpersonal Skills Toolkit. And let me just say, these concepts are absolutely not just corporate checkboxes to tick off. These are literally your superpowers for building strong customer relationships.
So here's the full map of what we're covering. Your complete arsenal includes communication, active listening, empathy, teamwork, problem solving, and respect. Every single successful interaction you have, yes, even that dreaded caller who rings in at exactly 4:59 p.m. right before your shift ends, requires a unique combination of these exact 6 elements. When a call goes perfectly, it's because these tools were deployed correctly. Mastering the whole shebang is what separates a good agent from a truly great one. Section 2, listening and empathy. Now, I want to intentionally slow our pace down here for a second, because these are the foundational elements of your toolkit, and they require a methodical approach.
Active listening requires intense focus. Step 1 is super simple on paper, but incredibly challenging in practice. Listen carefully. In a high-volume environment, the temptation is always to hear the first few words of a customer's problem. Assume you immediately know the answer and just jump right in to fix it. We've all been there. But you have to resist that urge. You really need to give them the floor to express not just the technical problem, but their perspective on it, without interrupting them.
Once you've listened without interrupting, step 2 is to ask clarifying questions. And this serves 2 massive purposes for us. First, you gather the precise context you actually need to solve the issue. Second, and this is huge, asking the right questions makes the customer feel heard. That is honestly the absolute fastest way to diffuse immediate frustration and tension on the line.
Which naturally brings us to step 3, confirm understanding. So the crucial point here is that this is the final, non-negotiable step before you try to fix anything. You paraphrase and repeat back exactly what the customer has told you. This ensures perfect alignment. Think about it. If you and the customer aren't perfectly aligned before moving forward, you risk solving the completely wrong problem. And what does that do? It tanks your first contact resolution metric and pretty much guarantees a callback.
And this brilliantly illustrates our next core concept, empathy. Empathy isn't just feeling sorry for someone. It's a highly strategic action. It means understanding emotions, using positive language, and building trust. When you actively demonstrate that you get a customer's frustration, and you pair that understanding with positive solution-oriented language, you instantly build trust. You immediately transform from being a corporate barrier into being their personal advocate.
Section 3, problem solving and conflict. Let's pick the energy back up, because this is where we talk about handling those high-stakes issues and irate customers on the front lines. Look, no matter how well you listen or how much empathy you show, you are inevitably going to face angry customers. It's just the nature of the job. To resolve conflict, you must stay calm, avoid arguments, and offer solutions. Notice how staying calm acts as a literal shield against escalations. A customer might be yelling, but if you absolutely refuse to argue back, the conflict has nowhere to go but down. You just absorb the energy, remain strictly professional, and immediately pivot to offering concrete solutions. Once you've successfully lowered that emotional temperature, you can walk through this methodical sequence. Identify the issue, analyze, follow your standard operating procedure, your SOP, and resolve. See how we separate the emotional skills from the procedural ones? First, you handle the emotion with empathy and calm. Then you execute this strict, four-step sequence to actually fix whatever technical or billing issue they called about in the first place. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how technology basically amplifies those interpersonal skills. Leveraging your CRM, your customer relationship management software, is vital. By quickly scanning a customer's history, you can offer highly personalized service. You don't make them repeat the whole story they've already told a previous agent. And this personalization leads straight to that coveted faster resolution time, boosting your efficiency while genuinely improving their experience. It's a total win-win. Section 4, Teamwork and Adaptability. Let's shift our focus for a second from that one-on-one customer interaction to the broader BPO ecosystem.
Up to this point, we focused heavily on just you and the customer. But remember, you do not work in a vacuum. You need to actively collaborate with quality assurance, your team leads, operations, and your trainers. I want to remind you that you are never alone out there. You are part of a massive support network. Your interpersonal skills aren't just for callers, they're for receiving feedback gracefully from QA, communicating effectively with your TL when you hit a wall, and participating actively with trainers. Another massive part of being a modern BPO professional is adaptability, specifically voice communication versus non-voice communication. These interpersonal superpowers have to flex depending on your channel. The empathy you so easily convey with a warm tone of voice on a phone call, that has to be intentionally translated into perfectly chosen text if you switch to a live chat or email window. The underlying respect and problem solving are exactly the same, but the delivery mechanism requires total adaptability on your part. Section 5, Best Practices for Success. Think of this as your ultimate checklist that ties all these soft skills into your strict standard operating procedures. So you've actively listened, you de-escalated the conflict, and you solved the problem. Awesome. Now we frame the end of the interaction with this final checklist. Before you close that ticket, you absolutely must verify the solution, document the interaction thoroughly, tag it correctly, and ensure you follow SOP to the letter. These administrative actions perfectly finalize a successful interaction. Because think about it, if you skip documentation, the very next agent who speaks to this customer is flying totally blind, and all your hard work is completely lost. We've covered the complete toolkit today, from active listening all the way to precise documentation, all aimed at hitting those vital business metrics. So I want to leave you with a provocative challenge. How will you apply these tools in your very next role play or training scenario? Seriously, don't let this just be theory. Take these concepts, practice them actively, and deploy them on your live calls today. You have the superpowers. Now it's time to use them. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep up the amazing work out there on the front lines.